Women are powerful creators. The Align Women podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Amy Evans. I have authentic, intimate conversations with my guests that highlight their paths to success, their struggles and accomplishments, and the things that currently excite, motivate, and inspire them to turn their visions into reality.
Welcome to the Align Women podcast. I'm Amy Evans, your host and the founder of Align Women, a leadership and networking organization for professional women. This podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. And with me today is Elizabeth Holman. She's the president of the Holman Group and a friend of mine in the insurance industry. The Holman Group provides behavioral health services that support things like mental health and substance abuse. Her company works with employers, associations, and trusts to provide services to their employees and their members. Elizabeth is a passionate supporter for female entrepreneurs and women in sales, and I'm excited to have her on the podcast. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me.
Let's jump into the questions. I have some things I'm really excited to talk to you about and some things that are really timely to the situation that we are in. I asked you to share something that you're working on that excites you, because I love having conversations about what's currently going on and what's really got you juiced up. And you said telehealth. And while telehealth might not sound like an exciting topic, it certainly has had its moment in the sun right now because of COVID. And I want to hear what your experience has been in your business with the telehealth services that you provide and how things have evolved in the last 4 months. And also, have you seen any things move forward? Have you seen companies adopting telehealth in a way that they weren't prior to the pandemic?
Yes, great question. We, like most insurance companies and most people in healthcare, realized that telehealth was really the only way to deliver services. With the safer at home, especially in our state in California, where we all suddenly had to leave our schools and leave our places of business, and it was brand new for everybody. We still had to provide services, mental health and substance use services, and crisis services. So we were already doing crisis calls by telephone. We weren't offering widespread telehealth, which is the video component, for our clients. And for some people to this day, I'd say there's about maybe 10% of the population that still refuse to receive telehealth. They would rather wait for their therapist or that person to, it could be a psychiatrist, to see them face to face. So there are still a couple holdouts, of course, like there are in any industry or business, though we actually saw an influx in phone calls from the provider side, the psychiatrist side, notifying us right away that they were available for telehealth. One of the reasons why, because we had been trying for the last 2 years to really ramp up our telehealth services, was because of the strict privacy laws around what platforms they could use. So for people not familiar, you had to have a policy and procedure in place about your privacy, your record keeping around your video sessions, and you have to have a way to store it, access it, recall it, and actually give it a copy to somebody like you would a regular paper or electronic health record. That was a barrier to a lot of people. Also, the cost, even though it's come down, it used to be you had to have a heavy-duty video camera, you had to have a dedicated laptop, it was on a cart, or it was, very bulky and cumbersome to do the telehealth. Now it's as easy as a $19.99 a month subscription to a encrypted type service. Though today it's still not required due to COVID to have that encryption. So what's excited me is just the volume of people coming together to make it happen, and they've expanded their hours that they're seeing patients. So if before they were really working, 8 to 4 or 9 to 4, now they're going 10 to 7 or they're going 8 to 7. And now they're seeing patients on Sundays. Not that I don't want work-life balance, of course. It just excites me that they can take more of our patients.
So what you've seen, and that was a piece that I wasn't anticipating, what you've seen is not only that patients have become more willing to receive services through telehealth, but that the providers have become more willing to provide services through telehealth.
Yes.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So along those lines, I asked you something that you wish more people understood about what you do. And your answer is so important that I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to read it again for the people in the back. You said there's no stigma about getting help for mental health and substance abuse issues. So again, for the people in the back, there's no stigma about getting help for mental health and substance abuse issues. So tell me how you're working to undo that stigma with the mental health and substance abuse services that you provide through the Holman Group.
So I'll give you some specific examples, and then I'll also give you some broad examples. So some of the specific examples, we work individually with a employer client to learn about their culture, because for us, providing mental health services, whether it's through an outpatient benefit, a mental health and substance use carve out, where we carve out of the medical plan, or it's an employee assistance program, which might be a defined number of outpatient sessions with a crisis hotline, community referrals, et cetera. And then, of course, management support for training, crisis intervention, whatever they need. So working with a specific client, it might be, what can we do to make people feel comfortable using the service? Down to the point where, how are they going to call in and identify themselves? What is, their issues around why they will or won't get help? And, everybody tells us, well, if you make it too hard, you ask too many questions, for this particular client, it's not going to work, even if that's a standard way that you ask everybody questions, that's your standard intake. So we listen to their needs. So let's just say, for whatever reason, we use a social security number as an identifier when they call in. That particular client can say, well, don't ask that question. I don't want them to have to give their social security number, because then they'll hang up. Another thing that we have done is we do not record our phone calls. Mm-hmm. We actually have a lot of clients with very sensitive jobs, very high-risk jobs. And if they're going to hear this call is recorded for quality assurance, they're going to hang up.
Yeah.
So in our business, you have to tell them the message 10 times about confidentiality. And so we have it on every printed material, every orientation, every implementation. People today still, especially if their employer pays for the service, they think their employer is going to know all their issues, because my employer is paying for it. Why wouldn't they have access? And so, our reports don't have any names. It's very generic. And, by going over, upon implementation, having what we used to do in-person open enrollment meetings, orientations, which are not happening right now. And we just tell people in different ways, whether it's at a health fair, which we don't have right now, we're not doing health fairs, where employees used to come up to a table. It's confidential. That's always the first word out of your mouth. I think that with social media taking off, with mental health awareness, suicide awareness, TikTok is a platform that's very popular for young people, and even adults and families love TikTok. So I think that the more we're seeing people posting suicide hotlines and phone numbers and awareness, that when people find out that they have an 800 number already through their benefits through work, that because they saw a TikTok video about somebody promoting the National Suicide Crisis Hotline, that they'd be more willing to use the benefit. So I think it's society as a whole, and then us just naturally, letting people know that it's not one size fits all.
Right. And so the services that you provide are extremely customized to each client's needs, and then their employees' needs, which is fantastic. Let's talk about one of my favorite topics, which is women in the insurance industry. And I know that's a good topic for you too. You've seen the industry evolve in the time that you have been in it, and there are a lot more women in leadership roles now, like you are, than there were in the past, but it's still a very male-dominated industry. What do you think that women can be doing, women in leadership positions can be doing to create more space and opportunity for other women in this industry?
So, there are a lot of really good resources and platforms. If somebody were looking, let's just say somebody was really into blogging and posting and writing. So there are different groups, of course, in general. You can practice even outside of your industry, like I'm part of this group of mothers, and it's a Facebook group, and I try to answer one post a night if it's something that I know something about, whether it's just a practice. So you don't have to start off right away networking or being an expert in your industry. I think you have to just practice interacting, mentoring, and giving advice in general. Some people will start with a parent-teacher association. Some people will get started with some type of nonprofit. So that's ways, if you don't know where to go within your own industry, to just start getting active and getting involved. Within your own industry, you can laser in through LinkedIn, for example. On your profile, you can say that you would like people to contact you for these types of opportunities, whether it be job opportunities. You can be specific into resume, into mentorship. So you have an ability on your profile, and then people will contact you. It could be within your industry. It may not be. Specific to women in business, there's the National Association of Women Business Owners. And you don't have to be a president or a CEO or an owner. You can be in a leadership position. You can be a supervisor, manager, vice president to be a part of that association. They do have mentorship programs and skills development. And then within our own insurance industry, there are at least 2 chapters right now, one that I know of that has women in business events, and whether it be luncheons or fundraisers. And so if that interests you and you live in that area, obviously that's something to get involved in. They're mostly live events though. So the events that I've seen, I haven't seen a lot of people move to our local chapter of our association has the Zoom happy hour that they do, which is, if I wasn't running a company and didn't have twin boys and a lot going on, I would love to join that Zoom happy hour. I mean, that looks like a fantastic way to network with men and women in your industry. The other thing is your alumni. If anybody did go to college, which it's not required, which is a beautiful thing in the insurance industry.
Beautiful thing, yes.
You can have a high school diploma or a GED. You can network where you went to high school. There are a lot of groups, Facebook, where if you went to a certain high school or live in a certain neighborhood through, I think it's called Patch, or there's different
right, or next
neighborhood
door.
Next door,
right.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you can network within that. Your local Chamber of Commerce will have a spin-off division of women entrepreneurs. Your LATIP groups will have a spin-off. They'll have maybe a women's group or a women's event. So we still have a long way to go. In my opinion, there aren't enough, groups except for the National Association of Women Business Owners. And I believe that they allow men to go to those meetings. So it's not just for women. It used to be, and I joke, I own a set of golf clubs. And the only way you could do business as a woman, in my opinion, 20 years ago, is if you knew how to play golf. I'm not a very good golfer. It was the scramble. It was a name of a certain, like a Texas scramble or whatever and you could have a horrible score and they would just throw your score out, but you could go play. And so I'm looking at where we came when I was like one of two women at a golfing event, and where we are today, where you have at least 50% women when the golfing events were happening. I mean, right there, that says a lot. Yeah. That we've come a long way, and you don't have to play golf to do business anymore.
Right. I think that's a huge evolution, and I acknowledge all of the women in I say the generation before, and I don't necessarily mean that as an age thing, but sort of the iteration before this one, where the only way to get a foothold was to play like the boys, literally play like the boys, play like them in the way that they dressed. So power suits and big shoulder pads, right? Play like them in terms of learning how to golf, and play like them in terms of how you showed up in your energy in order to be present, be heard, and be successful. And I love that we have moved into, in my opinion, a new iteration where we're not required to do those things anymore. Totally okay if someone wants to, but we're not required to do those things anymore to be successful. And we can say, I don't want the luxury box, the golf course, the whiskey tasting. I want a spa day or a fashion show or a hike outdoors or a wine tasting or something that feels more authentic to me and how I network and the activities that I'm comfortable doing. And I love that we get the ability to do that. So I totally understand what you're saying about golf clubs. I am glad that I didn't, in my sales career, that wasn't the environment that I was in. I didn't have to play that way. But still, even a year ago, I was in a very high-end networking group. And by high-end, I mean expensive to be a member of. And it was very clear to me after a couple of years of being a member that most of the business that was being done was still being done on the golf course, at the country club, at the whiskey tastings, in the luxury boxes at the sporting events, and that I wasn't invited, nor was I interested in going. So it wasn't a resentment that I wasn't invited. It was really an acknowledgement that I wasn't interested in going. And I decided that wasn't the space for me. And that was really that's how Align Women as an organization was born, was from that realization. So I love what you said, and the thing that you started with is really going to resonate with me. I'm going to carry this one with me, that one of the ways that women can make space for other women in this industry, make space for other women at all, make space for other women in this industry, is to be of service, to offer their expertise. And I've noticed, as I've evolved into a leadership role, if I'm on a webinar with other people in the insurance industry and I hear a woman express a struggle with something, like I'm not really sure how to, this is something that just happened recently. A woman I respect greatly is venturing off into a new sales adventure with her business, and she doesn't have sales training. And so stepping into putting together an ideal client profile, putting a pipeline together, working that pipeline, totally foreign to her. And so I reached out to her and I said, I've got some experience with that. Can I be of assistance to you? And I gave her some questions to consider and offered to spend some time with her on Zoom, walking her through how she might set this up. And so the point that you made resonates with me so much, because any woman can do that. Any woman who's had some experience doing something, who's gone before, can turn around and reach a hand out to somebody who's coming behind and say, let me help you with that. I've got some ideas. Can I offer you some suggestions? And that's really valuable.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. That, the same woman that you're talking about, later I'd love to share some books with you. It may not be all female authors. I have one in mind for your friend later on that I can send you, though I would like to, talk about other things later in terms of maybe some authors or some other ideas later on in the interview.
Yeah, I would love to hear that, because especially women in sales is a topic that that is very interesting to me, and resources in that area are super interesting. So I will be sure to get to that. I wanted to go into something that you led beautifully into. I love to ask women who are in leadership positions how they nurture their feminine side, especially if you're in a male-dominated industry and in a leadership role that typically requires you to show up in your masculine energy to get things done. So what's one thing that you do on a regular basis that grounds you in your feminine energy?
Self-care is really, really important. So that's one thing that I work in more so in the last 2 years, off and on before that. And, obviously getting a good night's sleep, eating right, drinking enough water, those seem to be, broken record, showing my age, right, with the term broken record. So those are really important. So you can't help anybody else. You can't show up as a leader, as a responsible, contributing person in society if you're cranky, if you're hangry, which is hungry and angry at the same time, which is a newer term in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And it's real because I've experienced it.
Sure.
And also giving yourself permission to share around with people that you trust that you are going off of little sleep. So I try to show up, whether it's with my children or with my employees, even my family members, that I'm on a crunch time right now. I'm on a deadline. I'm not ignoring you. I'm needing to do this, and then I'm going to be doing my exercise, or I'm needing to do this, and then I'm going to be cooking. Cooking during COVID has been a real stress reliever for me. It's using a creative side of my brain that I don't normally get to use, especially being in a fast-paced business where you're wheeling and dealing, so to speak, all the time in a more masculine, traditionally masculine energy. And so cooking, exercising, stretching, yoga, sometimes just following your breath, which some people might call meditation, just following your breath and being inward for 5 minutes at a time. In my household, I'm lucky if I get to take a shower for 5 minutes because it's a very busy, demanding household. So that's a luxury to take a shower. And I do like to get my hair done. So that feels good when I, do some pampering. Just recently got my nails done for the first time in 4 months. And it was really an amazing feeling. And I forgot how much I missed that self-care and that time to just relax.
Yeah.
And so that was great. They just reopened my massage place. And I'm hoping to be able to get on the schedule because everybody's now wanting to book a massage.
Of course.
And, one thing that my father always told me, my father's still active in the business, is that he would say, you need to go get a massage, at least once a month. So he's been telling me this and promoting self-care and meditation for probably 20 years or more. And so being in an environment, mental health, where we do promote self-care, it's silly if we're not also doing it for ourselves.
Of course.
You have to.
Right.
Because it is a really grueling, it can be a grueling job, and you're always on. I get calls 6 to 10 o'clock at night with people in crisis that, even though I'm not a licensed counselor, I have to facilitate sometimes their care or help them get connected to the right people.
Yeah.
And it's, prior to COVID, we talked about work-life balance. Now it's about, self-care and finding that space like your beautiful studio How do you find that space in the middle of everything? Because you may not have the luxury of a babysitter or a massage or getting your nails or your hair done. It may not be in your budget. So what can I do? Okay, this is my chair, my favorite chair. This is my, favorite plant that brings me happiness, or this is the dish that I want to cook. So that would be my examples of nurturing the femininity.
I love those, and so many of them have to do with reconnecting with your body, which I think is and those can work just as easily for a man to connect with his masculinity, but anything that allows you to reconnect with the physicality of you and come back to being a whole person. And so much of those self-care things, while they sound like pampering, also give you the space, the time. The meditative state I go into when I'm getting, say, acupuncture or a really deep tissue massage is a really yummy meditative space that I can't accomplish on my own when I'm at home. Like that time when everything else is shut out, I have no requirements to do anything, including move. The only requirement I have is to breathe. That's really valuable time for me. So I recognize when you get back into getting your hair done or getting your mani-pedis done, it's not just about the pampery piece, but it's about having the time for yourself and letting your thoughts quiet down and being able to relax.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, let's shift gears a little bit. One of your superpowers is negotiation. And I love that because I don't think a lot of women claim that. And so I want to hear more about your approach to negotiation, how you develop that skill, and that might lead really nicely into some of the book recommendations that you have.
Okay, great. So part of for me is that growing up in a family business with both my mother and my father, my mother was actually the negotiator. And so having that role model in my life, always sent me the message that I could do whatever I wanted. I could accomplish whatever I wanted. And my mother always got her way. And she was loved. She was so kind. And back to the theme of being of service, that actually you can be of service during a negotiation.
Sure.
And you can look at, do I want to partner with this person? Do I want to have a relationship with this person? Do I want to do business with this type of client? Do I believe in the products that they're selling or the services that they're doing? Do I see them making a contribution, making a difference in people's lives? Will they make a difference in my life? Will they make the lives of my employees easier? And, lately we've had some major, I guess we still call it software, type of purchases that we had to do. And, at some point, if you like the service or the product, if it's good for you, you have demos and you go through the process. How you treat people, if you're on time to your appointments, that's part of the dance or the art of negotiation, is how respectful are you during that process? Because if you are late to the first meeting, if you, somebody kind of lets you feel that you're not important or that you're not focusing on them during that interaction, that can be felt. And when we used to meet people in person prior to COVID, so whether you're wanting to buy or you're selling, right? So that's both sides of the negotiation, is what side are you on? What's your goal? What do you have in mind? And I like to be transparent, and I like to, if I really like a product, I'll tell them, straight up, I really like your service. I could see us using your software. It would fit our need. I have a budget. And I'll ask for what I want. I'll say, can I get 50% off your price? Can you sharpen your pencil? Can you do any better? So I try to be positive. I let them know that I'm serious and that I'm not negotiating to waste their time. I try to cut to the chase a little bit quicker. And I also won't accept a demo if I'm not looking to buy. I won't have a demo just for the sake of a demo. Just like I won't test drive a car. I had a kind of an ethics conversation with a few friends about, free samples. Mm-hmm. I know it's going off on a tangent a little bit. The free samples at See's Candy or the free samples anywhere. I said to them, unless I'm going to buy, I won't take the free sample. And so I approach negotiation the same way. Now, it doesn't mean the person on the other end has the same mindset, though I quickly can tell in the very beginning based on, are they on time to the appointment? Are they giving me good eye contact? Are they talking to me in a respectful tone of voice? Do they have their boss or the decision maker on the call? Or are they, going to quickly get in touch with the decision maker? So I think over the years from, being in sales almost my entire career, I've learned along the way how to not avoid mistakes because I made them in the beginning. I didn't have the decision maker. Mm-hmm. Sure. I was on a spreadsheet and I was dealing with somebody who was just filling in numbers and I never got to the decision maker and I put my heart and soul into it. And by not getting the sale, that's how I learned, right? Yeah. A little bit of pain points.
Yeah.
And then you have more and more experiences and you transparent ethics, mm-hmm. Speaking from the heart. And I've actually let people know, I think my competitor would do a better job for you. And, I'm not going to be able to match that price. And it sounds like you have a really good program and you should stay where you're at. And I can tell you when I do that, typically they come back to me and they want me.
So what I'm hearing you say about the art of negotiation is that you approach every step in the process as a piece of the negotiating process, from your willingness to use your example, to view a demo. You wouldn't put people through their paces or lead them on. You would only do it if you were serious. And so when you bring that seriousness and intention and authenticity to the interaction, it lays each brick in the foundation to allow you at the point of price to say, I know this is what I want. I've looked at all the pieces. I've looked at your competitors. This is the best for us. Here's what I want to pay. And each of the bricks in that process has allowed you to get to the point of standing on that solid ground and asking for what you want.
You almost have to be willing to walk away at the same time. So if you really, really want and you've narrowed it down, either it's meant to be or it's not. So also going in without fear, eliminating the fear, and knowing it will be what it's supposed to be. And, if you go in fear-based, nervous, that shows.
Sure.
People can smell fear a mile away. They can also smell somebody who's not prepared. Right. And I think that being prepared, and sometimes I'll say on the first call, I have to have my IT person or I have to have this person in the call. Do you want to have this demo knowing that you have to repeat yourself, or do you want to wait until he's on the call? I do give people that courtesy and that respect. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, it's okay, let's do this. And then, and I said, well, he might join us late or he might not join us at all. So I have those dialogues.
So much of what you're saying is very similar to my experience in sales, which is most of it has to do with the work you do prior and how you show up. It's not about manipulating the other person. It's about showing up authentically. I feel that way about sales. I've been in sales for 20 years, and I've always seen sales as teaching. It's education. It's me having something and explaining to the other person how I think this thing will benefit them. If they choose to purchase it after that explanation, and it's my job to explain it well, to know my stuff, to be confident in it, to not misrepresent it, and to believe that it's really a good fit for that person. There's no sales tactics. There's no need for tactics. It's just explaining something well to the right person and having them agree that this will benefit them. And it sounds like negotiation for you is similar in that it's about what you're bringing to the table, not about how you're manipulating the person to try and get something from them.
Correct. And if I am in a deal and I'm ready to buy and somebody won't tell me how much it costs, it lost me. They'll want to do one or two more demos. They'll only send me a proposal if I schedule another meeting or a demo. And, while I like on the other end going over my proposal, I feel like in the mental health world and the employee assistance program world, it's just words on a page. And what we do is so customized and special that we want to have that dialogue about it. It doesn't mean you're committed to buy. I just want you to understand how we're different or how we can help. And typically we're allowed to do that. But the way some people will approach me, especially in the IT and the tech world, about I won't even entertain sending you a quote unless I can do a product demo. It feels, and mostly it's been men, unfortunately, that I've been dealing with in the IT tech world. There definitely is a shortage of women. They're still trying to hire more women in IT. And I think that we are lucky to have, people that are more women in our industry. I think we're very lucky.
Yeah, I do too. So give me some book recommendations. I love book recommendations.
So basically, one of the books that I like is, it was just more out of curiosity. I'm not going for a board seat right now, but it's Earn Your Seat on a Corporate Board, and it's Jill Griffin. And so a lot of my recommendations that I get are, I listen to the business channel on satellite radio in my car. I think it's 132. And even though I'm not driving as much, I listen to that, and they'll have a lot of authors and people, on that show promoting their books. So she was interviewed, and then I had never heard her before. I never knew who she was. I like her a lot. And there's a book, I'm guilty of the free books on Amazon Prime and Kindle, right? That I'll go ahead or sometimes I get credits on there. There's one called The 10 Habits of Highly Successful Women.
Okay.
And sometimes I'll look for people that will author articles that resonate, and then I'll see if they're published. I'll go find their social media, and I'll just, start following them on social media.
Sure.
The sales book, I like Joe Bazzello. All of his sales books. He used to work for a famous, well-known insurance company. And
so did I, and he was my sales mentor. The majority of what I know, I work directly with him. So I know him well. Yeah.
I don't know him personally. I feel like I know him because of all his posting and his book and all that. All the books that I've read of his, I would recommend for your friend.
Yeah.
And to me, he's not geared towards men or women. He's just geared towards success. It's just, it's neutral. Yeah. And so the more neutral you are, I think that it could be for men or women. Yeah. And I'll probably look up as a follow back up with you more through my phone, through the my Kindle list. But those are the first that came to mind.
I love it. That's great. I've received, in the process of doing this podcast, I've received some great book recommendations. So we will link the Amazon links to those books in the show notes on the podcast website so that people have access to them. And I would love to find out where people can get in touch with you.
So my email is elizabeth@holmangroup.com. And our website is holmangroup.com. It's HOLMANGROUP.com. if you use that email address, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter. And just look under my name, Elizabeth Holman, or my LinkedIn. That's the email that I gave you. And, I'm happy to help you with, advice or networking or questions about mental health or substance use. And we're doing a lot of training right now. We're doing a lot of crisis debriefing because of COVID. And we're just there as a resource if people just want to know about mental health in general.
Wonderful. I think that's such an amazing resource to have. And I'm glad we got the opportunity to share it with the Aligned Women audience, because it's so important to do everything we can to make sure people know those resources are available and remove the stigma around taking advantage of those resources. So I love the work that you do.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining me today on the Aligned Women podcast, Elizabeth. It's been a pleasure to have you, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Great. And look for more episodes with more amazing women at alignedwomenpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening to the Aligned Women podcast. You can find more episodes with more amazing women at alignedwomenpodcast.com. And visit alignedwomen.org to learn more about our leadership and networking organization. This is Amy Evans, and you've been listening to the Aligned Women podcast.